What does the truth mean to you? What does it mean to hold a conviction?
¿Dónde está la biblioteca? Which literally translates to, I don't bargain, pumpkin fucker.
Veritas is one of my favorite manhwa, and is from the time before manhwa were more synonymous with color and the more standard scrolling format of today. Spoilers and opinions warning. If you want to hear spoilers and unsolicited opinions no one asked for, then... In the real world, fantasies like fighting a group of people single-handedly don't exist. Right? At least that's what Ma Gangryong thought up until now. After being saved by this mysterious stranger, Gangryong rather angrily begs to be his disciple. The man dismisses him as foolish and his efforts as half-hearted, and gives him a similarly half-hearted response. Stamina is the best for middle school fights. Run 2 hours every day. Saying that he visits this road every 6 months, the stranger vanishes. Gangryong, being a bullheaded idiot, does nothing but run until he meets this stranger again. Lo and behold, he does, and much sooner than he initially anticipated. And when he meets him, he gets his ass handed to him. The stranger comes back and visits every once in a while, giving Gangryong different training regimen and exercises while simultaneously keeping up with his progress. Gangryong obediently continues this until high school, and then this stranger decides to take the next steps in their lessons and for him to officially become his disciple. The name of the martial art that he will impart onto Gangryong is EOTL, the Enlightenment of Thunder and Lightning. Gangryong is slowly trained and taught all of the techniques of EOTL. Even if he can't use them immediately, after enough training, it's only inevitable. Eventually, the master imparts all of the knowledge he has of EOTL to Gangryong and gives him some advice, or rather a warning, saying that it is natural that if you were to attain a stronger power, then it's inevitable that you would also encounter a strong opponent. Gangryong, not being a total dumbass for once, asks, following that logic, isn't it natural that his master too would have a strong enemy? His master continues and explains that he fought a certain group for a very long period of time, and a number of his colleagues, many of his friends, have since passed away because of it. And he too is now forced to live in hiding. As he's leaving to fight some great demon lord in his own words, Gangryong sheepishly asks for his name. His friends call him Yuchun, and his enemies call him Lightning Tiger. Not even a full year later, a mysterious group presents Gangryong with the severed arm of Lightning Tiger. Immediately, this group demands Lightning Tiger's successor, Gangryong, to come with them. Gangryong doesn't easily give in, but even with EOTL, he isn't strong enough to resist and ends up getting his arm broken. He is taken to a strange facility. This is the Reunion, and it's basically a place where they gather ancient martial arts that have retained their destructive power and capability and protect and revive those martial arts. Where someone who seemed to know Lightning Tiger asks if he ever mentioned them. Traditional artists and successors of these schools retaliated against the Reunion. One of these successors was Lightning Tiger. It seems a bit weird that someone so directly involved with Lightning Tiger's death is being so liberal about this information, but whatever. Gangryong doesn't really give a shit and asks about the only thing he cares about: who killed him. Unfortunately, he's not at a level where he can hear that answer, so instead, he is invited to the Reunion, where he will train alongside other students until he can eventually get his answer. Gangryong, with little other choice, accepts. He is taken to the school, but they're just not gonna let him attend just as easy as that. First, his skills need to be evaluated. Gangryong easily destroys the fighting dummy he's presented with and announces to the rest of the onlookers that he is just here to become stronger, not to become a dog for the Reunion. After the testing, Gangryong goes to his newly assigned dorm, which is filthy. He got done so dirty, literally. However, Gangryong is not so quick to lose hope. He's not some kind of monk who can train by himself. Instead, he's going to use this facility, and he swears to take revenge for his master. It's not long until some students come to visit him, but not to ostracize him. This is Rud, and this is Jiha, and they also hate the Reunion. They take him to see a test that one of the members of the student council is undergoing. in order to see exactly what he'll be up against. The match gets Gangryong fired up, and after some friendly banter and some test jabs, Gangryong decides to test his skill against Rudd to see if the Nine Dragon Society is really worth joining. Rudd follows through, but as he's easily dodging Gangryong, he explains that he has been receiving ki from the school for years now. The school has given them decades worth of ki, and while there might be hope for Gangryong to win if there's a few years of difference, there is none when there are whole sexagenaries of difference in ki. Just to hammer the point home, Rudd takes Gangryong's punch right to the face and is unfazed. Rudd, even a little disappointed, puts an end to this farce and leaves Gangryong on the floor of his dorm. As Gangryong is left alone in the darkness and filth of his dorm, he recalls the advice that his master gave him.
Don't be stupid. The more you have, the harder it is to purify. If there's a will, the mind will move. And when the mind moves, ki follows with it. Purify your ki over and over again, and then you'll be able to achieve great strength. Even with the small amount of ki that you have, Lightning Fist obviously becomes more powerful when the ki is purer. That's the basis of the enlightenment of thunder and lightning.
The next day at school, a couple of side characters pick a fight with Gangryong. After venting his frustration on these no-names, Gangryong is confronted by yet another person. This is Gu Honsei, and he is the leader of the Nine Dragon Society, and leads Jihan Rudd. He offers to buy Gangryong a meal, and warns him not to show his true ability to the elite class of this school, if he doesn't want to become like him, and have his inner energy dispersed. Gangryong, hearing this, calls him a coward for submitting despite having all 4 of his limbs intact, and goes back to training. Yeah, he's kind of a dick if you couldn't tell up until this point. After training for a while, Gangryong decides that the best way to improve is through practical experience, and just decides to fight people on sight. And he does just that. The school divides rankings and combat ability based on levels, and while Gangryong is able to hold his own against the lower levels, when he encounters a level 6 for the first time, he's outmatched. So, Gangryong relentlessly provokes the level 6 so that his movements are wide and predictable. However, his cheap tricks only get him so far, and it isn't long before he loses. Well, at least the level 6 doesn't kill Gangryong. Fast forward to the next day. Yeah, remember that level 6? Well, he got cucked big time. That girl that he was with stole his clan's secret martial art. He is a traditional successor, and the reunion pieces together martial arts from these ancient traditional arts. Needless to say, there's a big feud between traditionalists and products of the reunion, martial artists made through the reunion's research. I say stole though. He willingly taught her, and she told the reunion. Really, you should have seen that coming, buddy. Without any other options, he challenges the girl, Yunhua, to a duel. However, he is unable to let go of his feelings so easily. And also keep in mind, she is a level 8. However, our guy is persistent, a little too persistent. He keeps getting back up, demanding an apology. Well, maybe demanding is a bit of a strong word. Yunhua is merciless and goes to make it so that he can never practice martial arts ever again. At that moment, the window in the viewing booth shatters as Gangryong enters the arena. Not to help him, but to get his own licks while he still can. Yunhua backs off, seemingly seeing no problem, although Gangryong is really good at pissing people off. Yunhua tells him not to act so cocky even if Rudd and Jiha are backing him up. Gangryong basically just says, "Girl, you're projecting," which honestly would make me want to punch him in the face too. So she immediately engages in a duel with Gangryong. It's a bit of a war of attrition, but eventually our protagonist pulls through, victorious. Afterwards, while recovering, the level 6 ends up visiting Gangryong and giving him his footwork from his martial art, even stuff he didn't tell Yunhua. Gangryong asks for his name as he leaves, and he tells him it's Beidou. After Gangryong is discharged and heads back to his dorm, he finds that 2 members of the student council are waiting for him. This is Guhu and Shinra. Shinra has mainly been in the background, but Guhu was the one taking the test at the very beginning. They destroy the box holding Lightning Tiger's arm, which naturally sets Gangryong off. Gangryong fights back and hits Guhu with some solid hits, but there's just too much of a level gap for there to be any effect. and Guhu knocks him out. Shinra stops Guhu from killing Gangryong and tells the hiding Honsei to tell Rud that unless Rud steps in, they're gonna do this every day to Gangryong. After waking up and recovering, he starts putting together the broken arm of Lightning Tiger. While he's doing so, a familiar face gives him a visit. This is Fire Dragon. In the meantime, Rud and Jihad decide to step up and confront Guhu and Shinra. Guhu's martial art is the Iron Soul, and it makes his body, well, as strong as iron, while Rud's martial art is known as Feline Claws, and he makes extremely sharp claws that can cut through anything. However, Guhu's Iron Soul is far too strong, and Rud isn't able to make him bleed, even with direct contact. So he has no choice but to concentrate all of his force into one claw, although even that doesn't get through. But Rud keeps going until he eventually is far enough away. You see, he had actually been slicing through the walls and structural support of the building and sends Guhu plummeting. While Guhu's focusing on the fall and is off balance, Rud gets behind him and uses a skill that he uses to open a soda can on Guhu's iron body. Shattered Cross. They land and Guhu yet again climbs out from underneath the rubble. He tells Shinra to cover her ears and uses a skill that he had been honing as well. Lion's Roar. This messes with Rud's eardrums and subsequently his balance, allowing Guhu to charge in for a direct hit. Several direct hits actually. Guhu goes in for the kill and Rud barely deflects it. He goes to charge in again, but his instincts make him back off, which inadvertently saves him. Rud tells him to reactivate his Iron Spirit, as without Guhu even noticing, he had been stripped of his armor. However, not even those seconds of grace and words of warning are able to stop Rud's next strike, as his claws cleanly sever Guhu's arm. Shinra quickly rushes to his side and tries to staunch the blood flow and is racking her brain for what happened, because Feline Claws is not an art that is able to slice through Iron Soul so easily, at least not according to the reunion's research. That's when she notices that Rud has awakened sharpened sword force with his bare hands. Rud used to be Guhu's punching bag, however, even past that, there is an even deeper grudge, a deeper resentment and hatred for Guhu for what he did, which I'll get to later. And in this moment, the cool, calm, and collected Rud briefly loses himself.
Watch your profanity.
This is what it does. It appeals to like the male fantasy.
Before Rud can kill them both, however, Jiha stops him as there are too many witnesses. Guhu screams his revenge and that he must be the one to kill Rud as he walks away. Fire Dragon, who was talking with Gangryong earlier, took him to use the high-tech facilities in order to improve his skill with enlightenment of thunder and lightning. He offers Gangryong artificial ki and even hundreds of year-old ginseng in order to boost his ki. But Gangryong remembers something that his master told him, that having too much is a curse, and refuses to take any of them. Fire Dragon offers for Gangryong to come back if he ever changes his mind. Meanwhile, Guhu and Shinra, who are licking their wounds, are given a book by the Student Council President, Vera, one that explains why Rud and Jiha kept countering their moves, and it's written by none other than Gu Honsei. Speaking of Honsei, he officially announces Gangryong's membership into the Nine Dragon Society, and of course the first thing the members gotta do is set a hierarchy. Two of the lackeys go down pretty easily, but the third one is much stronger. This is Life Wisher, the youngest successor of the Southern Yard Play faction. While Gangryong does show impressive spirit and even manages to push Life Wisher by forcing him into a dogfight, it's only a matter of time until Life Wisher knocks him down, and Gangryong gets knocked down so hard that he gets stuck on the roof. As the fight ends, a voice comes from the window of his room. This is Chungu-sung, another member of the Nine Dragons Society. This is the fifth of the Nine Dragons and the eldest of them. After briefly checking in with Honsei and on Lightning Tiger's disciple, he leaves to attend to some unfinished business. Meanwhile, Rud also gets a visitor, a member of the student council named Madoka. She, Rud, Jiha, Honsei, Guhu, and Shinra, and the student council president, Vera, were childhood friends. times. She reminisces on the good times and wishes that they could all just go back to when they didn't have artificial ki, to when there wasn't levels distinguishing their rankings, back to when they could just be themselves and enjoy the commonality of developing their own martial arts. If the student council didn't exist, and if Vera wasn't there to lead them, would they have made it this far? Vera was cold and unwavering, and only she could have gotten them through it all. Madoka begs Rud to stop so that they can just go back to the way things were. Rud hits her with the reality that those times are long gone and won't come back. Madoka is silent for a moment, but she too makes her resolve and tells Rud that if he wants to get to Vera, he has to go through her. Madoka leaves to the rooftop in order to clear her head, and soon after, our other new character, Chun Gusong, appears. You see, a while ago, Madoka kicked the crap out of Gusong, and now he's here to get even and pick up the pieces of his shattered masculinity.
It's time to do.
The two square up, and you know it's serious because both of them pull their yiddies out. Madoka takes the lead as her specialty is throwing, and her art is a reunionized version of judo. However, Gusong has since improved and is able to counter her throws with strange and almost inhuman movements. This is thanks to the martial arts of the Southern Yard Play faction, a faction of traditional artists. Thanks to this, he's able to fight against Madoka and is able to unleash the full power of Life Wish. As the top of the Southern Yard Play faction, Gusong is able to turn the tides and defeat Madoka. Perhaps it was a hint of emotion, or perhaps this would throw a wrench in her plans, and she still needs Madoka. Vera interrupts. The student council president herself, Vera, challenges Gusong. This guy is obsessed, like Hisoka levels of obsessed with Vera, so much so that he has willingly betrayed his faction, the Southern Yard Play, and was even the one to suggest and go through with the idea of destroying Honsei's Ki Center. After all of that, he was still betrayed by Vera, and well, let's just say, he didn't take that well, and he crossed a line he couldn't turn back from. Even as he does so, Vera is cold and doesn't even look at him. Gusong thankfully backs off and resolves to do nothing but keep whatever it is Vera desires away from her. And now, Vera challenges him, and with all the sincerity in the world is looking at him, even if it is a gaze filled with murderous intent. Vera absolutely destroys Gusong. It isn't even much of a match, as within a few devastating blows, Gusong is defeated. Of course, before he goes, he has to get a smooch from the girl he simped so hard for. Vera coldly responds to his dying words, saying that this wasn't even her first kiss. Rud rushes out and makes his resolve to Vera that he will challenge and defeat Vera next March. Rud vows to bring down Vera from her throne. Gangryong in the meantime is focusing on what his master told him, and he refused the ginseng and multiple opportunities to get a bunch of artificial ki for that purpose, and focuses on the method his master taught him. The method of EOTL, purifying your ki over and over again so that even with a small amount of ki, the purity of it will allow you to draw out an immense power. Vera starts to put her own defenses into action and visits Hayato, one of her childhood friends, as well as one of the greatest talents of the reunion. His story is a little complicated, but we'll get to it later. All you need to know for now is that he is extremely talented and practices the Northern Broad Strike, one of the two styles said to be strong enough to go against Vera's own style, the Heaven's Riches. Vera then begins to visit the leaders of the traditional factions, starting with the Southern Yard Play's master. As she convinces each of the elders and masters to join her side, she's betrayed and confronted by Fire Dragon. He and his men easily tie up this guy, Earth Beast. Just to give a quick backstory on him, It seems, unlike Lightning Tiger and Fire Dragon, who inherited the original arts of their masters, Earth Beast is a reunion creation, artificially recreating this much weaker Earth Beast. However, as Fire Dragon is about to press his advantage, Hayato steps in and defeats the men surrounding Earth Beast. While he might not be a match for Fire Dragon right now, his sheer talent would let him defeat his own master in 3 years, and Fire Dragon in maybe 5? It's enough to turn the tide and pressure Fire Dragon into backing off, which he does so. Being pushed into a bit of a corner, Fire Dragon pulls his last card and goes to our protagonist, Gangryong. He takes Gangryong to the woman who killed his master, Yuri Linus, Vera's older sister. She is the principal of the school and head of the reunion. Fire Dragon is acting as principal in her stead, and when Lightning Tiger rebelled against her, she was attempting an old ritual. An ancient ritual that would harmonize her ki with the ki of nature and virtually make her into a god. However, during that ceremony, Lightning Tiger and his comrades appeared and ruined the ritual, thus putting her in this slumbering state. With Lightning Tiger's arm as a price, he left an immense amount of lightning ki within Yuri, sealing her and preventing her from awakening. After this, a power vacuum is left, and Vera, who had been shunned and told she was not good enough to lead and was not as amazing as her sister, was suddenly burdened with the position that she was told her whole life she was never fit for. And well, she does her job. Fire Dragon uses the story of Lightning Tiger to trick Gangryong into absorbing the electric energy and releasing the seal. Gangryong manages to absorb the energy and even improves because of his experience with such a high degree of pure energy. However, he tells Fire Dragon to effectively fuck off and leaves, saying he will never return. On his way out, he meets Hayato, who seems to recognize him, and for the first time, someone asks not about Lightning Tiger, but Yuchun. A while ago, Lightning Tiger, when rebelling against Yuri and sacking the reunion, attacked the school and defeated many of the masters that came after him. He also met the squad, Vera, Gusong, Guhu, Ra, Jiha, Shinra, Honsei, and Hayato. After kicking all of their asses, he notices that Vera has quite the seal placed on her by her sister, an extremely potent one at that. After breaking the seal and absolutely wrecking shop, Lightning Tiger escapes. Hayato finds him while he's resting in the woods nearby and asks him how he learned the Northern Broad Strike, a style that Hayato had spent years piecing together since his early childhood with the information provided to him by the reunion. It was his style, and he demanded to know how Lightning Tiger learned it when the line of succession was dead. Lightning Tiger, not wanting to kill a child, decides to spare him and tells him where he can find the last master of the Northern Broad Strike. Hayato went and eventually meets his master, where he spent all that time until now training in the Northern Broad Strike. He tests Gangryong because he needed to find out if he was also taught the Northern Broad Strike, as Lightning Tiger was taught it under the condition that he would not teach the style to anyone else. So Hayato is here to confirm that Gangryong was not taught that style, which he wasn't. However, Gangryong, being the battle maniac that he is, challenges Hayato and forces him to use his art, which allows him to send back the force directed at him. Hayato wins in the end, but not before Gangryong forces him to go all out. Hayato then goes to meet up with Vera, while Gangryong meets up with the 9 dragons to train and prepare themselves to fight against Vera and the student council this upcoming March. Vera's style is known as the Heaven's Riches Void Fist, and Fire Dragon had given Rud a secret technique to give to Gangryong, made by Lightning Tiger to overcome the Heaven's Riches. Because Lightning Tiger knew the principles of the Heaven's Riches, he was able to make his own version of it, Heaven's Void Lightning Brand. To understand Heaven's Void Lightning Brand, first, you have to understand the Heaven's Riches art. The core principle of the Heaven's Riches art is similar to that of a TV remote. Vera's hand is the remote, and the enemy body is the TV. Even if there's a person in front of the target, the art still can go through and attack the intended enemy with the utmost precision. Heaven's Void Lightning Brand does the same thing, but with the principles of EOTL. In fact, early in this training, Gangryong was briefly shown this technique, Gangryong must complete the technique before March if they are gonna stand even a chance against Vera. However, even before that, Gangryong and another person must pass the school's qualification test and beat a test dummy that is specifically resistant to electricity, one made under the oversight of Fire Dragon. That one other person is another successor in the Southern Yard Play faction, Park Hyunmi. She is the first one to fight the dummy, and as she is fighting it, she notices something extremely strange, that it's moving with the art and technique of the Southern Yard Play faction. More specifically, it's moving exactly like Gusong. Turns out they implanted Gusong's nervous system into the droid, creating their first ever level 9 robot. Because of that, Park Hyunmi is driven into a corner and takes some nasty hits. Madoka, Hayato, and Jiha, who are in the audience, try to interfere and call out Fire Dragon and say that this is super fucked, and yeah, it is. And Fire Dragon, well, he takes it upon himself to make this a learning experience for his students. Hyunmi manages to turn the tides against the dummy while they're arguing and eventually makes her resolve and lets go of Gusong by killing the dummy, finally accepting his betrayal and that she will never get his approval as a successor of the Southern Yard Play faction. She limps away from the arena and into the waiting room, and not wanting to show weakness to her competitor, Gangryong, limps away from the testing site entirely. Meanwhile, Rud, Hayato, Madoka, and Jiha are all fighting Fire Dragon 4v1. Well, more like 3v1 because Madoka immediately goes down and is passed out on the floor. Jiha, who is constantly naming Fire Dragon's techniques, is actually revealed to be one of his 3 disciples, Shinra being another one. Jiha and Hayato create an opening for Rud to finish off Fire Dragon, but he manages to block it as the difference in power is too great. Fire Dragon starts his counterattack and attacks the 3 with the intent to kill. However, as he is concentrating his attack on the boys, Madoka crawls her way over to Fire Dragon and gets her hands on him, taunting him for being oh so careless, which, to be honest, I was too, so hell yeah. She throws the shit out of him and everyone rushes him. Rud launches a big starting claw, Jiha ties him up and tries to keep him still, while Madoka tries to take him off balance by going for his legs. Hayato goes in for the kill. Fire Dragon, however, still manages to repel them all, and it's at this moment Gangryong busts in, his patience having hit its limit. Apparently the test was suspended and he just didn't get the memo. It's perfect because they needed a hand, and he charges into the fight with the perfect set of moves to tie up Fire Dragon. Enlightenment of Thunder and Lightning. See, part of EOTL is when you get hit with its lightning fist, you'll find yourself with your ki temporarily dispersed and you'll be unable to gather it, rendering you virtually powerless in a fight. Unexpectedly, it does more than just disperse his ki and actually does damage. Jiha immediately takes the opportunity to kick his master right in the face, and everyone just begins to wail on him. Fire Dragon unleashes a huge dome of fire that surrounds everyone, but Gangryong is able to blast it away with EOTL's lightning flash. It bursts through the ceiling and disperses the dome. However, at this moment, Vera comes back. She dismisses all of the student council members and makes Rud and Jiha go into isolation training as punishment until the match in March. Guhu and Shinra use this opportunity to ambush Gangryong once again after Rud is left in the hopes of bullying him out of school. Guhu tells Gangryong to fuck off, saying that unlike an idiot like him who only cares about fighting, they have burdens to carry. Their martial arts is experimental, developed, and developing, so there are many who die in the process or suffer horrible side effects. They have people to take care of. Their families live in better conditions as their levels go up. Shinra has a sick father who needs expensive treatments, and Guhu has 7 siblings that he needs to take care of. They aren't fighting for some childish desire to become stronger. Gangryong, in response, says that he doesn't give a shit about any of that. He has always wanted to be stronger from the moment he was born. He questions Guhu's resolve in the face of defeat and despair, and tells him that he's not just invincible because he has a moral cause or people he's fighting for. What is he gonna do when he loses then? And then Gangryong does what he does best. He pisses Guhu off and tells him instead of gloating like that, he should send gratitude his siblings' way because they made him so strong. Yikers, man, even I want to punch this guy in the mouth. Guhu is infuriated and charges Gangryong, but Gangryong is not the same old punching bag and knocks Guhu so hard he blasts away like Team Rocket. Even with the support of Shinra, they are outmatched. Equal lefts and equal rights, am I right? Gangryong spares them, knowing there is footage of this that is sure to piss off Vera, and is just waiting for March to roll around, which it does sooner rather than later. Rud and Jiha come out of isolation training, and all of the student body is gathered to discuss the results of the last student council election. You see, this whole thing was started for one very simple reason. You remember that grudge I was talking about that Rud had? Well, one girl was killed. A long time ago, Rud was stranded and dying from an illness on a beach. He was saved by the successor of Southern Taekyon, a girl named Anacheli. Southern Taekyon and Northern Broad Strike are the two arts said to be strong enough to go against the Heaven's Riches. She taught him the core breathing technique, a highly prized secret, in order to save his life, and they quickly became close friends. Fast forward, and the two are in school at the reunion, and Anacheli has unfortunately caught the eye of Yuri. She possessed talent that could rival that of Vera's, and thus threatened Yuri, and was marked for death early on. However, even before anything could be done, Guhu, with his obsessive loyalty to Vera, decides to kill her in a match himself. He almost dies because of it, but Yuri cures him as a reward for his proactive efforts. Come back to the present, and Rud challenges the current student council in the attempts to make a traditionalist-only council. It will be the student council versus the members of the 9 Dragons. He announces the matchups. Jiha will fight Shinra. The 2 disciples of Fire Dragon will go up against each other. Hayato will fight a bandaged member called Muyang, who has since learned the cobbled together version of Southern Taekyon, and clearly at a price. Gangryong will fight Yuhua, a puppeteer of the Southern Yardplay faction who betrayed them along with Gusong. Rud will naturally fight Guhu, and the last member of the 9 Dragons, Paul, will fight Madoka. Don't worry about Paul, he's literally just a guy. Lastly, Vera. Who is going to challenge Vera? And it's none other than the guy who got his ki center destroyed and his ki dispersed. It's Gu Honsei. All those years ago, when Gusong betrayed the faction and attacked Honsei, Hayato was the one to confirm if his ki was indeed dispersed and his ki channels were indeed ruptured. When Anacheli was killed, Rud, Honsei, and Hayato knew something was wrong and feared that Honsei, who possessed similar levels of talent, would be targeted next. That's when Rud hatched a plan. Fake the destruction of Honsei's ki channels and teach him the breathing art of Southern Taekyon. Hayato, being from the reunion, would be the perfect double agent. Then, Honsei can practice away from the eyes of Vera and grow his skill in order to eventually defeat her. Since his encounter with the Northern Broad Strike, he too is a traditional artist. Honsei also agrees, and the rest is history. Vera, for the first time, shows something other than a cold and blank face. Vera begins to laugh hysterically and is unexpectedly ecstatic as she can make Rud face the fact that they're one and the same. No matter how gruesome the outcome is, he has no right to complain. After all, him and Vera are one and the same. He too will do whatever it takes, just like her, and he too, whether he likes it or not, is trained in the reunion's methods. The student body is dismissed until the time of the matches, and the 9 Dragons members leave the school in order to prepare. Hayato is suddenly called by his master as they are leaving and told to immediately ditch his friends and meet him outside. Vera also suddenly gets a call from backers she had been working with, traditional artists who have a deep grudge against the reunion and Yuri, and Vera is planning on selling out both of them. She is given an ultimatum and must enact the plan now in order to show them her will. You remember when Lightning Tiger infiltrated the reunion a while ago? Yeah, well, Vera was apparently the one who let him into the school and gave him badges to help him get in. She also had the hots for him, but thankfully this doesn't take a weird route.
No. It's now illegal.
And Lightning Tiger rejects Vera very promptly. Anyways, back to the present. She hangs up and asks Madoka if there had been any students who had escaped these past few years. There are only two, Meidohyup, that level 6 that got cucked, and Life Wisher, the youngest talent of the Southern Yard Play faction. You see, being obsessed with Vera and everything she does, Gusung had naturally heard of this plan, and when he came to the school to challenge Madoka, he also paid Hyunmi a visit and warned her of Vera's plan. She didn't entirely believe him, but just in case, she still took precautions and sent away the youngest talent of the Southern Yard Play faction, Life Wisher. With that, Vera gathers the student body in the newly renovated training room, now with no windows apparently. As everyone looks around and wonders why they are gathered here, Vera enters, and she, one by one, slaughters all of the students with her bare hands. Then all of the traditional artists in waiting gather under Vera's command and begin to slowly slaughter everyone else, targeting Fire Dragon, who is protecting the unconscious Yuri with the most resources. Guhu begs Vera to stop even as she is killing other students, pleading that he sacrificed everything for her, that he didn't betray him even when Shinra, his own girlfriend, asked him to. He still chose Vera because she is their leader. Vera replies coldly, "I never thought I wanted to be your leader." That this is not a position she earned by choice. She eliminates everyone until only one person is remaining, the one who always stayed by her side, Madoka. Madoka just stands there. Vera asks why she isn't criticizing her, but Madoka, from a point of acceptance, finally understands what Vera meant when she said that she can't promise them anything. She just didn't expect the result to be so inhumane. She decides to try and turn her heart through non-resistance, to die directly staring into her eyes. Unfortunately, however, such things are but fantasy, and there is no change of heart here. However, Vera, through teary eyes, claims that she will never be able to forget her gaze. And with that, she snaps Madoka's neck. Fire Dragon and Shinra at this point, who had escaped, find Rud, Gangryung, and Honsei and Jiha and let them know what's going on. Hayato at this point has met up with his master who has informed them of the same thing while running, that Vera killed everyone and the traditional artists are going to clean up the stragglers. However, during their escape, after fending off all of their pursuers and successfully protecting his disciple, the master of the Northern Broadstrike can sense his end approaching and officially passes on the art to Hayato before he himself passes away. The remaining students, Rud, Honsei, Gangryung, Jiha, and Shinra, as well as Fire Dragon, carrying the unconscious Yuri, all gather at the rooftop of a skyscraper, where one of Vera's traditional artist lackeys tell them to look at the big display on the building in front of them, and that Rud will be getting a call from Vera very soon. They turn on the screen and show the entire student body slaughtered on the ground. Everyone is stunned, to say the least. Gangryung even thinks that it's photoshopped, which for the 2000s is wild to say just off the top of your head. Rud gets a call, and Rud is infuriated. He asks why she is doing this, and Vera calmly reminds him that she is actually a traditional artist. In fact, she is the only true traditional artist, as from day one she is trained in the heaven's riches and refused any artificial key from the reunion. Not only is she a traditional artist, she is the only traditional artist in the school. Naturally, Rud calls bullshit. Everyone who did not use the reunion's methods had to be dropped or killed. She was the one who made people do that. She again calmly replies that he's right and gives him an ultimatum. Sacrifice yourself and save your friends. If he dies on the spot, Vera will let his friends go. After his awakening of sharpened sword force and his natural talent to even overcome a martial art that had the distinct advantage against his, such as Guhu's Iron Soul, Vera has marked Rudd as a threat, and thus tells him to sacrifice himself if he wants his friends to live. Everyone is shocked at the screen and cannot hear the call, but can tell that Rudd definitely got some shocking information. She pressures him to decide now, as Fire Dragon is escaping and taking most of her resources up. With that, she hangs up. Rudd has not even a moment and simply laments about Vera's cruelty. He apologizes to his friends and apologizes to Anicelli before slashing himself with his feline claws. Fire Dragon sees this, and the forces after him immediately start to pursue after they report Rudd's death. Fire Dragon manages to stop by Gangryong to say one last thing before escaping with Yuri. If you want the strength to exact revenge, follow the energy of the enlightenment of thunder and lightning. Fire Dragon escapes, and the forces pursue after them at top speed, completely ignoring the students thanks to Rudd's sacrifice. Jiha screams into the air his revenge and starts to go off the rails, telling Honsei that Vera must still be in the school. She is still in the school, or at least outside of it, and she is actively watching it burn down. From the flames, a shadow appears. In a brief glimmer of hope, Vera thinks it is the one man who can stop her, Lightning Tiger. Instead, it's Gangryong, his disciple. He knocked out Honsei and Jiha, who had lost themselves, and is now out here to confront Vera himself. Vera gets straight to the point and asks where the real threat is. Where is Yuri? Gangryong says he doesn't know.
I don't know.
And he got the energy from Lightning Tiger that was sealing Yuri. He successfully got his inheritance, and couldn't care less about where Yuri went. He is just operating for his Veritas, his truth, just like Vera is, and just like Rudd did. Gangryong rushes in. Since he undid his Master Seal, he has to finish it in this battle. He launches one of his strongest, and no pun intended, flashiest techniques, Lightning Flash. In this moment, the cold Vera, who had only been prone to blank expressions or outbursts of hysteria, shows a genuine smile, like this is the first time she is feeling a sense of joy, a sense of fighting for her Veritas, her truth. Who knows how far away the collapsed and probably dead Fire Dragon has successfully protected Yuri, who is finally awakened. She tells Fire Dragon not to worry, as there must be kids who hold a deep grudge and bear resentment towards Vera, scattered and waiting for their revenge. She will slowly bide her time and strike when the time is right for their dream and their ideal to complete their truth, their Veritas. This manhwa to me had so much potential and such strong characters. Vera's whole character arc is awesome as we see her built up to this monolith, a wall for everyone to surpass, but our perspective is the same as all of her classmates. She's a threat. In fact, her whole life has been under the watchful gaze of Yuri because of that very reason. She is introduced as cold and unfeeling, cruel and merciless, but as the story goes on, we realize she isn't devoid of emotion, she's just numb. She was raised constantly being told she was never good enough, that her sister was always better. However, because of her immense talent, Yuri not only had to demolish her spirit, but force her to stay in the shadows by constantly monitoring and limiting her movements, even going so far as to seal her power with a rather risky and dangerous seal. And then, in an instant, Yuri is gone, and Vera has to take up the burden of leadership, a burden she spent her whole life hearing she was not good enough for. And even before that, she and the other kids were cruelly given experimental arts, and because she was the most talented amongst them, there too, she was leaned upon by these other kids. Vera was constantly asked to take care of others, to never long for things that were too far from her reach. She had no comfort and no one. Even people like Gusong could tell, and yet even they only hurt Vera in the end, because even they do not truly have Vera's interests at heart. Everyone around her only sees her for what they want from her. No one really even sees her, much less do they care about what she wants. In her own words, "We aren't even looking at the same place. You guys are always deciding on something by yourselves." She didn't even want to be a leader in the first place. It wasn't a position she had by choice, which I think is the perfect way to sum up Vera's whole character. No one cares or cared for what she actually wanted or felt. She was told not to long for things outside of her reach, to grasp what is in her meager capability, which made her do the very opposite. She longed for, obsessed for, things and even people out of her reach. Anything to rebel against her sister, even willing to see it through, no matter how inhumane the ending. Because of that, she began to long for things that were outside of her reach, things she shouldn't long for. And I think her meeting with Lightning Tiger is a good summation of her arc. After rejecting Vera, maybe by coincidence, says that she is the same as her sister. Vera vehemently denies it, but it's true. The Vera of today understands that if she wishes to get what she wants, she must take it. No one will give her anything, so she must make the decisions, or else decisions will be made for her, no matter how cruel those decisions may be. In order to do that, she cannot waver. She must keep going forward without looking back, and it turns her into something much worse than her sister. She becomes numb, and eventually a monster. But it's that very Veritas, that resolve and conviction that finally brings a genuine smile to her face in the end. Fighting against Gangryong at the end gives her genuine joy, because now she's fighting with her own two hands for her own choices. She is finally getting to fight for what she wants. Vera has such a strong character arc, and the strong character dynamics between the students like Guhu and Rud being inserted and constantly referenced really gives this dynamic of things constantly moving and plans already being set in motion. Because, well, they are. Gangrang himself is effectively a backup plan, a way for Lightning Tiger to set his conscience free, knowing he might die fighting against Yuri. And Rud, Hayato, and Honsei had been scheming to betray the reunion the whole time. Rud and Honsei's character arcs are amazing too. If anything, the main character, Gangryong, is the dead weight, quite literally. The man gets knocked out so much. He breaks his arms a lot and is constantly injured. And yeah, this is a fighting wuxia manhwa, and he is weak and he is supposed to get better, but the sheer amount of times he is just knocked out and that is used as a transition, it's just too much. Gangryong is practically the most forgettable part about this story, and really the only reason you remember him is because of the flashiness of EOTL techniques and the artwork. Which, a brief aside on the artwork, I love the art, especially the fight sequences, the general architecture and buildings that are all around. The landscapes are always fun to see, and the large-scale destruction is always awesome to witness. But goddamn, there needs to stop being so much ass and yiddies and too much ecchi. Stop it. It's just so distracting when there's an awesome 10 panels of fighting and then you just see yiddies on the screen or an ass. It feels like it's just annoying and an interruption most times. Anyways, Gangrang is relatively forgettable. Like, Lightning Tiger in his flashbacks is more charismatic than Gangrang himself is when he's actually trying to be charismatic in person. The personality contrast is nice, that Lightning Tiger is a smooth, suave, refined master, while Gangrang is a rough around the edges, beat 'em up kind of guy. But that only really works when the asshole is also charismatic. Gangrang is lacking a certain oomph in order for us to really root and care for him. What's more interesting is his relationships with the individual characters that appear throughout the manhwa. His relationship with Fire Dragon, and the way you're never really certain if he's on your side or not, is a great back and forth. And I know I ragged on Gangrang's personality, but the way Gangrang is instinctually able to defuse a lot of Red Dragon schemes is a great little tete-a-tete. The last thing an asshole protagonist needs is to be incompetent on top of being a dick. Speaking of dicks, I like that Fire Dragon is a constantly lurking threat, and is like the devil on a lot of these characters' shoulders. He's constantly pushing them towards a sort of monkey paw situation. The level 9 dummy they used to test Hyunmi was a perfect example. They asked for a level 9 dummy and made Gusong fight even in death. Fire Dragon gave the reunion exactly what they asked for. All of the students, their backstories and relationships are all so messy too. It's not like way too convoluted and overly political like Game of Thrones. There are two sides, traditionalists and the reunion, but there is so much complexity in why you are on the side and if you are accepted or not. Vera was a product of the reunion, but because of her art, she is considered a traditional artist. Hayato is the exact same, a product of the reunion's research, but turned into a traditional artist. Meanwhile, legitimate successors like Fire Dragon and one of his disciples, Shinra, are allying with the reunion, while his other disciple, Jiha and Life Wish, are still considered to be traditional artists despite taking in artificial ki given to them by the reunion. Lightning Tiger and the other traditional artists sacrificed their lives to stop Yuri and to stop the reunion, and in the end, Gangryong is fighting against those very traditional artists, the very people his master was supposed to be representing. The back and forth betrayals and constant swapping of traditional arts and reunion arts makes for such compelling character dynamics that I just wish it kept going, which I guess that does beg the question, why did it stop? While trying to find out what happened, I looked into both the author and the artist's other works. The author, Yoon Jun-shik, has written a couple of other things, none of which I can say I've ever read before, and I don't really plan on reading them anytime soon. However, as I was researching the artist's other work, I was so surprised to find out that they do have a recent work, one I have read and do recognize the art style from. Hoarding in Hell. This artist's style is so recognizable. Kim Dong-hoon's art style is so recognizable and has only improved since. It looks so sick and is coming out now. Oh, I see people saying that it was axed suddenly and that there might have been budgeting or profit issues, and that definitely may be the case. However, it's also been noted that the artist is notoriously hard to work with. Veritas was cancelled because of a disagreement with the artist and author, and as I looked into the artist's work more, yeah, pretty much every single one of his works has been on hiatus indefinitely. No hate to anyone, but it's really hard not to see a pattern, especially when multiple people corroborate that this guy is a bit difficult to work with. The author and artist disagreeing definitely killed Veritas, but what made it stay dead and really put that final nail in the coffin is just probably the simple fact that there are substitutes for this kind of story. Actual completed manhwa and manga like The Breaker and Kenji that also have that martial arts flair. I feel like asking for a resurgence would be a bit too much, but if you're watching this, author Jun-shik, please bring this back. What did you guys think? Did you even read this? Was I reading it through nostalgia tinted lenses? What do you think? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.